And if I had to be another person to stand up, if I think, after really going through this, and looking at the files and looking at the case, if I really feel that Karen Reed didn't do this and I have to be a voice that stands up and helps, I will.
We are expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Reed was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
We're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
It was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Karen Reed's not going to fold. Karen Reed's not going to give up. Defense team's not going to quit. The Free Karen Reed movement is going to continue. We will continue to raise funds for her. We will continue to do standouts across Massachusetts, across the nation, across the world to let everybody know what's going on here in the state of Massachusetts, the corruption. And we will continue to get the word out there. Believe me. Believe me. All right, everybody. What's going on? Happy Friday night here, and welcome back into Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media channel. I am your host, Brian. Some call me LTL. A lot of people call me BLT. It is what it is. But tonight is my first edition of Friday Night Heat, and we're going to get into all the spicy testimony throughout this week. And wow, what a first week, right? We're a crazy first week. Carrie Roberts essentially perjured herself on the stand, and we're going to be talking a lot about that tonight and going through her testimony. But I could not, here's the thing, like I've been kind of waiting a little bit for someone to come back around here. And I want to talk about my mystery guest here. And we're going to get, like I said, it's going to be hot. It's going to be spicy. And I have someone tonight that knows a lot about hot and spicy things, especially chicken wings. And we're going to bring that person on here in a second. But let's reveal who my mystery guest is tonight after this video. right. All right. All right. Let's bring Maza Media back to the stage. Hello, sir.
Testing. Test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. I'm back.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
I love it. I love it, dude, man. Like your voice, I've been nagging you for weeks. I mean, listen, I know you needed a break. I understand that. I think we all respect it. Everybody in the chat is respected. I mean, we have people crying that you're back. I mean, look at this, crying like a baby. But we needed you back here. Like your voice is truly missed in this movement. You have been one of the people that have been, you're OG, bro. You are OG. You know, Nathan Reed and Bill Reed said you are OG. And you needed to be back here. And I kept, I kept nicely asking Maza all the time, like, hey, when you're ready to come back, let's do a show. Come back, let's do a show. And he said, you know, we'll do it. We'll do it when I'm ready. And you said tonight was the night. So welcome. Here's the floor. The floor is yours, man. This is you talk to everybody here.
Yeah. Well, I miss everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm sorry if I startled anybody with my sudden departure from YouTube and even to some degree on X and all that. But I did what I needed to do for a time. I'll keep some of the reasons to myself, but I will definitely admit that I was definitely just burnt out with a lot of aspects of life and really needed some time just to kind of have a little bit more free time to just do other things and catch up. And certainly recently seeing Karen and her family again was for me really one of the first moments where I was not coming back. I'll be honest with you, I was not coming back at all. I was effectively just gonna essentially move on, not move on from supporting Karen, but maybe just do things on X and kind of be done from YouTube. And I've done that from time to time in the past, even when I was, before I ever did Karen Reed shows. I remember in September 2023, I had decided it was time to no longer do the sports show and took a few months off from YouTubing, which I did on a weekly basis for about 3 to 4 years. And I kind of got in that little, I guess maybe a little bit of a slump or a burnout phase where it was just kind of like, I just wanted to, you know, maybe enjoy the spring a little bit and get out there. But I said, I'll keep up on X. I'll be out there on X and continue to talk about things. But like I said, over the past 2 to 3 weeks, me and Brian have been talking privately. He's constantly been like, you got to come back. You got to come back. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. I doubt it. I don't think I'm ever going to be back. And but behind the scenes, we were talking and truth be told, I was actually supposed to come back a couple days ago on a recent show he was going to do. And I had actually agreed to appear on the show. And then I was running really late. And then I ultimately just told Brian I can't make it. And then I don't know, a couple of day or two, me and him talked the next night and we kind of talked about a bunch of stuff and the trial started to unravel, you know, day by day. And I don't know, I just felt it again. And last night I was sitting around and just decided I wanted to assemble a bunch of pictures. I want to grab a bunch of pictures of my personal journey, meeting everybody and events I've been to and outside times I've been outside the court, and just decided I want to put together a montage. The hardest part about making it was picking a song, and I wanted to add about 10 different songs I wanted to put in there, but they're all copyrighted. So let me try to use a non-copyrighted song, I said. And then I used all these generic songs off my Movie Maker, and then finally after 30 songs I kind of settled on the one you heard. So I must have spent about an hour last night. Then there was the uploading issues. I had to clear space, get that thing uploaded. So finally I got that video on there, and I didn't want to put a tease like I'm back or returning soon. I'm just going to put out a nice video, and I couldn't believe the messages I got from everybody. The comments were incredible. The amount of likes the video got was incredible, and I was very happy. And quite honestly, yesterday and today, yesterday kind of felt like New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve for me. I kind of knew I was definitely going to come back this time and wasn't going to really back down from doing a show. And I just felt like this was the time. And I felt like I did what I needed to do. And I'm glad I did. I actually took a quiet break before the start of the first trial, but I didn't really have a real big YouTube presence or any YouTube presence at all in the actually I think I might have did. I might have been a few of the hearing shows on the Young Jerks, but took a break and kind of rested up before the trial. Then the trial's getting underway, and I kind of felt like every one of you boarded a plane for a big mission, like it was Mission Impossible. And I'm just standing there on the runway watching the plane go, and I'm like, I we need to be with everybody. I need to be a part of this, and I need to, I think I need to for myself continue on with my participation at the level that I really committed to a year ago, which is being on these shows. And I don't know what my plan is yet. I don't know if my own show is even going to come back yet. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I am already talking with a few other creators that have kind of coincidentally reached out to me about coming on their show. And they didn't even know anything about this. Brian's the only person that knew about this besides any people that are in my close circle. But I don't think too many other people knew that this was coming. But I'm happy. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. And as soon as the trial started, I just felt that part of my mind that, it's like Batman. He just can't deny who he is. And, he's got to throw on the cape and cowl and brood over the city of Gotham and, get out there and do what he's got to do, because he is Batman and he can't deny who he is or what he does. And that I just feel like for me in my life, this was something that I was meant to be a part of. And I feel like everybody else was meant to be a part of this as well. It's a part of this thing. And I think even more people are meant to be a part of this as well. And I felt like, this is a very small window in life. Last year's trial went by more quickly than we expected. And here we are about 4 days into the new trial. And it's already 1 week's already down of what could be a 10-week, 9, 10, 11-week trial potentially. And 1 week's already over. And here we go. And I just felt like, maybe it's time to reorganize my schedule a little bit when I get out of work every day and, find ways where maybe I can exercise for a bit first and then catch up. And like I always catch up after work has always been my way of doing things and finding out what went on that day. Work's busy. There's no doubt about it. And then after work, it's catch up time. It's, the other day I was listening to YouTube and catching up on the trial after I got done work, got walking and had it playing in my headset, was literally listening to the trial and walking after work at the same time. So it's all about, getting things done. Work's a big part of my life. I value it highly. I always want to do a good job when I'm working. And at the same time, I want to have that time to, when I get out of work, to follow the trial and catch up for the day and find a way to just stay informed about what's going on. And what's great is that YouTube, you can play at high speed. So it's good. Yeah. And then I'm doing my exercise. I'm like, I'll just listen to the trial while I'm walking instead of sitting on the couch and watching it after work. I can, maybe just listen to it while I'm walking after work, because I got to get that exercise. That was the thing that really I didn't like about doing shows last year, was not really exercising much. I'd sit down after work and catch up for the day and see what happened. And then, it was like I wasn't really getting that exercise. Then I was jumping on shows and just sitting around being a couch potato. So this year I'm like, what can I do differently? And I said, let's just fire up the headsets, get walking after work, catch up on the trial, and then do what I got to do. So I'm happy to be back. I'm very fired up. I do feel honestly like this is all going to end to some degree. I think that someone said it best, even if count 2 ends up incorrect this time, that maybe there's a chance that maybe 1 and 3 get thrown out and then maybe it's just 2 on a potential third trial. I think that could possibly be worst case scenario. And if it is, I'll be happy with that, even though I don't want this thing to continue on any further. But I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling that Karen Reed's team and her are going to prevail this time around. And I pray for that. And honestly, God help us all if this is another mistrial. I really hope not. But this is a big fight. And, for me, I've just kind of felt that edge come back in the past few days. And it's been a lot of catching up in my evenings and getting ready to kind of put my thoughts together and instant reviews. And I'm ready to go. So Brian, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into some videos and we do some breakdown of all the kind of spicy cross-examination over this week, let me ask you if you can just do a quick summary of how you feel so far, what you've seen. And let's just go to this too. If this ends up in a mistrial, do you think the Commonwealth tries Karen Reed for a third time?
I'll start by answering this. I think that they will try her for a third time, given their relentlessness. They've been relentless, and somehow they found a way to get a jury. So I would say until that day comes where, if it does end in a mistrial or a hung jury, that I'm laughing at that comment, that it could very highly get pushed for a third. They might pursue it again. They might. Yeah. These people have been pretty relentless, the Commonwealth and the prosecutors and all that, and we've seen that Karen's taken this to the Supreme Court, and everything she's tried to do is ultimately being kicked back. So I would say there's probably a 65% chance or greater that they try to push this to a third trial if this ends indecisively. Now, if count two, if it's the same outcome with the jury as last time, and count two is still on the board, I think that they'll try to weigh that a little bit, and something tells me they might try to push forward, or I don't know. I'm 50-50 on that. I haven't thought that far about it, but it's really too bad. It's quite frankly sickening to be here. Excuse me, let me stop and say it's sickening to see Karen and her family and her friends and all of them be dragged into this again. And I was thinking this evening, that Karen, it's like when you're in school, when you're growing up, you have to go to school, right? You can't drop out to whatever. You gotta be there every day, and it's a mandatory appearance. And for Karen, she's basically enslaved to court appearances, and she's kind of thrown into this and thrusted into this to a point and to a degree where she can't break out of it until she gets through this whole thing, and that's my concern for her. Is I'm tired of watching her and her family go through that. And I can definitely tell, like, they more than certainly want this thing to be over. And I definitely can attest to the attorneys definitely don't want to be here again. But I think that at the end of the day, they're all ready to do what they need to do to get the job done. And even though there might be some, my goodness, do we have to do this all over again?
Yeah.
I was compared to Super Mario Brothers. You get all the way to the level 8-3 and you're taking on King Koopa. And then all of a sudden your cat walks by and grazes the power button or the reset button. And the next thing you know, you got to start from world 1-1 again and start all over. So I think that's kind of how this feels. Especially when you had a defense team. People can critique the defense, however they want in the first trial. I thought they did an exemplary job, and I think most people feel that way. And I don't think that anything more they could have done would have changed the outcome based on a lot of the controversy with the verdict slip, which was quickly addressed by Attorney Alan Jackson early into jury deliberation last year. But I feel ultimately that it's it's going to be a battle, and they're going to have to just do what they need to do, and they're ready to do that. And I think that, God willing and jury willing, that they'll this time just acquit her of this, and that's it, and let Karen Read go on with her life, which will then turn into, who is she going to sue? And will we ever find out if there's an investigation from local and state-based sources to figure out who the true killer or killers of John O'Keefe truly was? Because we know it's not Karen Read. That's an absolute fact. And anybody that thinks Karen Read did it is either significantly understudied on this matter, lacks awareness on this matter, or is a total moron, quite honestly, because I can't imagine how anybody with the discerning, thinking brain can look at this. Or, maybe you just hate Turtle Boy. Maybe some people out there just hate Turtle Boy and can't stand him, and they have an issue with Aiden, and they don't like the fact that Aiden has really propelled this thing into the spotlight and gone a long way, and is really trying to get this story out there. And what's happened to Aiden as a result is he's been arrested and thrown in jail and hit with multiple charges, and he's done a lot, but he's also taken a lot for his efforts as well. And I think that it's important to continue to get the word out there. And I do think that we're winning. the Free Karen Reed side. I think we've seen a lot of results, especially lately in a particular town, where things have gone their way, whether that's in elections or other means. There's a lot of positivity going on right now, and I think that tells you that the power of the people, when they stand tall, may be met with a lot of resistance. They might be met with, perhaps acid, whatever is what, some kind of bleach filled water balloons attacking their property. But when they continue to stand tall and come out and not back down and continue the stance for what they believe in, that over time, you don't necessarily get that instant result. But when you stay there and chip away, you do over time start to see those results. And I think we're starting to see the evidence of that. And to that point, Brian, if I may continue for a few more minutes longer, I know
your floor tonight, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think that also, like I said, I imagine the defense doesn't want to be back for this. I'd imagine that in a perfect world, it all ended after the first trial. But also with this all comes a significant advantage for the defense. And I'm sure you've talked about this on your show. I've heard this talked about on many other shows. And that's that the defense basically can now look back at the original trial as a trial run, and basically almost like a preseason now, where they basically have interviewed all of the witnesses, most of them at least, that weren't now new witnesses in the second trial. But we know that now, the defense is really taking advantage of this, because I think that the defense has refined their approach. And I think that that's, like I said, the defense did a wonderful job in the first trial, but like anything in life, usually the second go around is your best go around, or a better go around than your first go around.
Because you have a lot more information. Sorry to cut you off. I mean, you have a lot more information here. And, like we've been talking here, and to your point, you have that run through. Now you have that testimony. You have that information to go back to these witnesses and say, that's not what you said. And we saw that a lot with Carrie Roberts the other day. I mean, they just kept pulling testimony left and right, and they're like, nah, that's not what you said.
Right. And I kind of thought that they should have cross-examined her last time, but I do feel, despite that I don't think that them not cross-examining her last time had any bearing on the outcome of that trial. So what I'm essentially saying is whether they had crossed her or not, that ending of that trial would have come out the same exact way, and it wouldn't have any difference. But I think that ultimately, like we saw this week, the cross-examination of her was very useful, even if it's just for the jury to see that there are questions that can be asked of someone that was a true eyewitness, someone that was there for a lot of the more animated points of Karen's night, where she was, just like if someone was at C.F. McCarthy's or at the drop-off or afterwards, I think having a witness like that and cross-examining a witness like that's good. So I'm happy this time around. And I gotta say that I feel that cross-examining her was the right decision. And to evidence to that is that these questions that are asked are effective questions, because you're trying to, whether or not whatever you feel about that witness is fine. Most of the Free Karen Reed people are going to have a very essentially a very effective negative view of her. That's fine. But I also think as a defense attorney, when you cross-examine someone like that, you can also ask questions and try to get answers that can also frame Karen in a more positive light, and ask her questions that would say, how did Karen act here? Did Karen show any behavior? And you can also, through that testimony, find ways to get a witness that might not be your own witness, and try to get them to answer questions that might come off as favorable to Karen before that jury. And that's what we've seen throughout this so far, especially out of the prosecution. And what has the prosecution done? And I have to say that the prosecution is doing everything they can to frame Karen in a very negative light. We saw what they did the other day. We saw the witness that they called the other day, and the purposes of having this particular witness on that stand was to, in any way, shape, or form, just try to make Karen look guilty and try to use, I'd say, a tactic to try to present Karen as negatively as possible.
Well, that's
And
what we're playing all those little clips in between every witness.
right,
Like they're
right.
kind of trying to get this into the jury's heads. Like, oh, she's awful. They're playing like these little vignettes. I feel like I'm watching something from like WWE when they do that. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
We're going to do this
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And just to your point, I just want to go back to this before you continue. Carrie Roberts actually testified that she said that Karen dropped John off at 34 Fairview. Not only Carrie Roberts said that in her testimony, but Peggy O'Keefe said that as well too. And then Carrie said, well, I wasn't going to question Karen because I didn't really even know what happened. So why would I even question her at that point? So that's actually two people that were there in that, like you said, in those kind of more animated moments that said that Karen even said that she dropped John off at 34 Fairview.
Yeah. It's groundbreaking, and it's amazing what kind of answers you can get out of people. And it was, it got tense during that cross-examination at times. And I think that anytime it gets tense, it's telling. It's telling about, what kind of story is being told here. And I think that it's important. And I think the defense is, like I said, they've refined their game. Like anyone going through something a second time, you're always more effective the second time. You're always able to, it's like I said, it's like if you it's like when the United States hockey team in 1980 played Russia and they lost. And they lost, but they also gained quite a bit of information on the Russian hockey team, and they also gained quite a bit of information on themselves. And that USA hockey team in the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, were able to refine their approach for the second contest against that Russian Olympic team. And as a result, they were far more confident the second time around and played a much more efficient brand of hockey, including the goaltender, Jim Craig, who had a much more sufficiently tended game and goal. And ultimately, they ended up winning the second time around. I'm sorry, they played them before Lake Placid. They played them in the game before they went to the Olympics, the last game before they went to Lake Placid for the Olympics. And Russia thought they were going to win. The U.S. team was more refined. And I also think that that's what happens with the defense, is that you start to look back at the first trial. And now you going into the first trial, it's like when you play a team, like when I played basketball. You play a team you've never played before, and you don't have any game tape on them or any experience actually playing them. And then you figure them out as you're playing them for the first time. But the second time you play them, now you have game tape of your team against them. You remember who you played. And then all of a sudden, you know what to do more efficiently. And that's called essentially narrowing things down a little bit more. And I think that was what was so great about, okay, it's bad. It's difficult for Karen and her defense team to have to, hi Valerie, thank you so much. It's difficult for Karen and her defense team to have to go through this again. But on the flip side, there's also a lot of advantages. And those advantages, as we've kind of touched on in the past couple minutes here, is now having footage of most of those witnesses and looking at which questions hit, which questions did not. Should we maybe not ask that question of this witness next time? Or should we ask that question in a different way? And I think those are some of the advantages that they have. Now, Alan Jackson did a fantastic job in the first trial, but he has come out of the gates like he's Tom Brady during an MVP season, like he's Tom Brady coming back from 28-3, like he's Michael Jordan in the Chicago Bulls in 1995-96. And he's basically steamrolling these witnesses. Now, the other thing, too, about Alan Jackson is that he is almost more quickly getting things out of these witnesses that he would like. Yeah. It's not like last time it was kind of like a feeling out to a degree, kind of setting up. This time it's almost like boom, boom. It's like almost like a 1-2 punch.
This time.
Yeah.
Gloves are off this time.
Right. There's a couple of jabs and all of a sudden there's a big punch. And now here you have a lot of effectiveness. And you can tell that, and the thing is too, not only is it a pickup in his honing in on all these people because he's more, now I wouldn't say more prepared this time. He's more experienced with these people this time, which anybody would be their second go around. And this time around, they've also had all this time. I mean, it's been a year since the last trial, and we know that they have not been sitting around. They've known since July that this is going to be another trial. They've had about 9 months to prepare, and it shows. And it absolutely shows in the cross-examinations and everything that they're doing right now.
Yeah.
And do I love Robert Alessi? I know he hasn't had his moment yet in this trial, but I just love that. I love that guy and his fight.
We're going to play a little bit of video here. That's a good transition, by the way.
We go.
Yeah, let me do this. I'm going to get to a couple of these super chats just so we can get them out of the way. I don't want to ignore anybody, and I appreciate everybody's support. Make sure to do the favor. I mean, there's over 1,000 people in the chat room. Let's smash that like button and get this to 1,000 likes so we can get this out there to that through the evil algorithm. And I want to, again, welcome my guest on here tonight, Mark Maza Media, over on the MazzaMedia YouTube channel. You can just look him up, MazzaMedia. Oh, I haven't said that in a while. It came out pretty good. And you can follow him on YouTube and also on X. He has a huge presence on X. Let's just do this real quick. Karen Reed is innocent. Thank you for becoming a new YouTube member. I appreciate that. Jason with a $5 super chat says, Mazza, you were missed. You are a man of honor, morals, and true integrity. Your honest fans always support you and your choices and respect you. That's so kind, and I love that.
Thank you.
Aaron, thank you so much for the 20. Says 2.0. Give us 3 not guilty. I love that too. Everybody's fired up tonight. Norman, thank you for the 10. Says, nice to see you, Mazza. I know you speak for all of us. We've missed you and need you in this fight. You two guys are great. Thank you so much. Reality Check checking in said, oh my God, someone told me Mazza is on. I love that. And then we have also a new YouTube member, Good Girl from Southie. Thanks for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. All right. You were talking about the fight. You were talking about the grit of Alessi. Let's play a little bit here. This is pre-trial today. Again, fucking arguing about ARCA. Again, and let's see the fight here. I love it. We'll play a little bit of this, and then we'll start transitioning into we'll go to Nuttall, then we'll talk a little bit about Carrie Roberts, and then end with Whitley from the other day. All right, here we go.
Has misstated just now 3 times the facts.
So I asked this morning, there were 100 or so texts referenced in the exhibit, whatever was presented by you folks. I asked if Mr. Jackson.
I just picture like Robert Alessi is the type of person that probably drinks ice water and pisses fire. I just think he's just the type of person that just literally drinks ice water, buckets of ice water, and just pisses fire. He's just got the piss and vinegar, but does it in such an eloquent way. That's what I love about him. That's what I love about him. Brenda, thanks for the new membership. Appreciate that. Here we go.
If he provided them, because my order was clear, they would be provided. And he said no. And I asked you at sidebar whether they were deleted. And you said yes, in due course. I have no idea what that means, Mr. Alessi. Why don't you explain that?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to explain. Here's what it means. Like anybody's phone, those text messages are 2 years old. They don't exist.
So can you also tell me, aren't the ABA guidelines the counsel is supposed to keep everything in a case for 5 or 7 years?
I do not believe that is the ABA rule with regard to experts. I'm unaware of that.
In regard to your client, and this was in regard to your client's case, right?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I didn't hear you.
Records kept regard to your client's case, which these are experts that were, I mean, there's 100 text messages leading up to trial when I was told that by you that there was a pause email, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, a bill appeared in July. This shows that's not true, Mr. Alessi.
Your Honor, that was a different question that Your Honor asked me back then. That was about,
I love the way he just snaps.
It was not about text messages.
Have emails been provided?
Yes, Your Honor. All emails have been provided. And that is why we are in compliance with all orders. And I will say,
so spicy, man. He's so fired up. I love it.
Also with regard to text messages, we have provided, pursuant to every order, every single text message that exists. Mr. Brennan just said, I believe there has to be more there. There's not more there, and I don't believe there can be an order of preclusion based upon the speculation of opposing counsel that there must be more. We affirmatively created a document, Your Honor, to be more transparent than the records, where we summarized all of the communications. Yes, we don't have the text of the text messages, but we were completely forthright and set forth every text that was made. Plus, we turned over from Ms. Little, the only other person on the defense team who communicated with ARCA, we turned over her texts and the text of her text messages. There is nothing else in existence to provide. And importantly, the defense was under no order to preserve the text of text messages. And we have never received, as part of discovery in this case from the Commonwealth, any communications between the Commonwealth and its several experts. That has not been what has occurred in this case. But of course, once Your Honor on Friday issued that order to provide everything, we provided everything we can that we had. The bottom line is, Your Honor, we've turned over absolutely everything we have. And in addition to that, we created a document so that it would be easier. We're the one who showed all of these text messages from Mr. Jackson historically. We created that document.
Can you imagine being like one of his kids and he's like, listen, I just got your report card. We need to come in and sit down and talk about this. Mazza, what do you think? I mean, I love Alessi.
He reminds me of the guy that's having his job reviewed in office space. I deal with the goddamn customers. What the hell is wrong with you people? But that's what this has become, because the argument, like the reason why he's so fired up about this is that for one big reason is because it's tiresome. It's become belaboring the defense has all the facts. They don't have to manifest anything. They don't have to make up anything. They have absolute facts. Okay. And they know what they need to do with the information because it's all factual. And time after time, they get in this tug of war with the prosecution when the defense is like Mr. T and basically the prosecution's like Gary Coleman. Who do you think is going to win that tug of war contest? But for some reason, the judge is placing a balance, some kind of way to equalize the resistance on the rope to somehow balance it out for the smaller, person in this game of tug of war. And that's what's happening is that Robert Alessi's getting up there. He's saying, these are the facts. This is the information. And this is what it is. And then everyone sits there like they're absolutely agnostic of all this stuff and all that. So that's exactly what the issue is here, is that the fact that they get there, we have the facts. These are the absolute facts. Robert Alessi could have recited that while talking in his sleep at 4 a.m. He probably wakes up at 4 a.m, so maybe like 2:30 a.m. But he's reciting it through and through. Here's the information. Here's the evidence. And everyone sits around the room and it's just like, oh, come on, Mr. Alessi. Is that really true? It's like, stop. This is a demonstration of the insanity of this entire trial. And really in that moment there is exactly what we were seeing going back to the hearings long before the first trial ever began. And that's the way it's always been. You sit there and you can't help, like you saw David Yannetti. He's starting to David Yannetti has absolutely had it with this judge.
Had it. They're done. And we're going to play a little bit of that testimony too.
Yeah. But it's like if you're a boxer, okay, and you're getting the better of your opponent, and the referee just keeps stepping in to see like referee time. Let me check the eye of your opponent. It's like you're trying to knock out your opponent, and the referee keeps getting in the way over and over and over again, like in any other sport. Football, they start throwing flags. Referees blow the whistle. In basketball, it's the age-old story of the referees or the officials taking over the game. And that's sometimes how it feels. And someone like Robert Alessi and David Yannetti are getting extremely frustrated beyond the judge just with this whole process. Because, again, they're delivering absolute facts that are undisputed. And then at the end of it, it's just like, we'll take it under advisement. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah. Okay, we'll calm down. And it's just how much of this stuff can you hear? And then, the prosecution gets up there, they give you some lip service. They finger paint what they want to tell you. And a lot of the stuff is almost like a twisted reality. They're telling you a partial truth, but they're inverting it. and then they're making it seem like it's something else. And that's the level of frustration. And this is why Robert Alessi can't help but get so fired up. And the thing is, too, people that are liars don't speak with conviction. Okay. Robert Alessi is speaking with conviction. And what conviction means, to put it in context, just to make sure everyone's on the same page here, is when you're passionate about what you're talking about. It's like if you know something to be a fact and people are trying to tell you, no, you're wrong. And you're trying to say, yes, I am right. And this is why I am correct. This is why I am right. And that's the behavior that Robert Alessi is displaying in this particular portion of this segment here. He's speaking with conviction. He believes what he says, and he believes it passionately.
Yeah.
And that's the very evidence that the truth is on their side, because when the truth is on your side, nobody can tell you otherwise.
Yeah. I think this chat that I have kind of pinned right here, the last, through your conversation there, it's like, we're tired. And I think they're just tired of having to explain this over and over. It gets challenged. They have to explain it again. It gets challenged. They have to explain. It's getting tiring. And you can hear that frustration in their voice. I mean, they're done. They're done with this whole issue. The bottom line is this, and we've been reciting this over and over again since we've known about ARCA. The Commonwealth knows that this is the case. This is the case. This is the experts, the independent experts that came in and looked at all of the data that was handed to them by the FBI. They went through and analyzed all this data. They recreated and did some experimentation. And at the bottom line, at the end of all of this, they concluded Karen Reed's vehicle did not hit John O'Keefe, and John O'Keefe did not come in any contact with Karen Reed's vehicle. And that's going to kill the Commonwealth. That's what they're afraid of. Yeah. Absolutely afraid of it.
I agree.
Absolutely afraid of it. Did you see the video, the taillight video that I played the other night? And what a good point by and I forget the channel off the top of my head, but he made a good point about the taillight and the Sallyport video. If you go back and look at Karen's vehicle, the photos that were taken, okay, of the hair, the sea hair that was, there. You look at her back bumper, there's all that salt that's on the back of her bumper, okay? And then you look at the taillight, the photo of the taillight. The taillight is clean, okay? But if Karen hit John and this taillight exploded, now we know that she drove several times after when she hit John. She drive back to the house. She drove back to Fairview. She drove to her parents' house. There's salt all over the road at this point. If this taillight exploded, like they said, then why is there not salt all up inside that cavern, the cavity inside that? The taillight is clean. That tells you they smashed the taillight inside the Sallyport, in the Sallyport. That's such a great observation and something that was so overlooked. And I hope the defense saw that video and can introduce that when these photos come up now and say, basically just explain it the same way I did. If this taillight exploded and there's pieces all over the ground and she drove away and there's salt all over the road, and New England salt, Massachusetts salt, Maza, you got a car, it's blasted. There's salt everywhere because we oversalt here on the road, and you get that residue on your car. There's residue that's all over her back bumper in those photos, but no residue inside the housing of that light if it shattered.
It's an inconsistency, and it's just more evidence.
They broke that taillight in that damn Sallyport.
They did.
100%.
There's no question about that. They definitely shattered that. Obviously, it was a whole. That's why I like I've said before in the past. They were developing the cover up on the fly, and on the fly does not necessarily limited to the evening that John O'Keefe was murdered. Not by Karen Reed in her vehicle driving in reverse, mind you. That conspiracy cover up was concocted over a period of time because they started to come up with more ideas as time went on. And this is not limited to the fact that they had found taillight a couple weeks after the fact. Now, why did they do that? Because they hadn't broken the taillight yet. No. or shattered the taillight. I've talked to Olivia Lambeau about this in the past. I don't know if she's still in the chat here. Me and her, I either think I did a show or something, and she was in chat, or we messaged. I don't know what we did. We had a conversation briefly about this, and I talked about the fact that they had done this on the fly, that they basically got an idea in their head. And what was that idea? Hey, look, that taillight is cracked. And I think that's how it all started.
Let's just shatter it and then start
when
concocting the
she,
story. Yep.
right. Karen Reed did back up and hit something that night. It was John O'Keefe's vehicle
Right.
in John O'Keefe's parking lot at One Meadow Lane. And when she backs up and hits that, again, it's the very same taillight that is referenced as being used in the whole allegation against her. And I think that's where this all comes from, is that they at some point said, hey, you know, someone once asked, why did they need to shatter the taillight for? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why exactly. And we've all talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to justify and have a case for his arm wounds, because simply hitting someone, simply saying, oh, Karen backed into John, is not a strong sell in your story, because then you say, well, let's take all the bruising out of it for a second. Okay, maybe they can try to justify the bruises or the head laceration any way they can. But then when you have very distinct wounds on the arm, what happens? You have to now justify a reason why that happened if you're going to pin it on the girl, to borrow a quote. And that is, it made sense to them that, well, hey, look, there's a crack in this taillight. Why don't we, the crack is not sufficient to justify the wounds, but what if we took a hammer to this damn thing and sprinkled it all over the crime scene, and then started to realize that there was taillight. Now, in the movie Copland, Officer Superboy Murray Babbage, played by Michael Rappaport from Boston, ends up shooting a bunch of guys in a car. They actually had a tire lock in their hands. So they pointed the tire lock outside of the vehicle, and Superboy Murray Babbage pulled out his handgun and gunned them down, and then they got in a car accident. And then they knew, the cops, that he didn't have a gun. It was a club lock that goes on your steering
came up
wheel.
with one, didn't they?
So what did they do? They pulled out a Mac 10,
yeah,
and they pulled off the tire lock, the wheel lock, and they planted the gun in the vehicle. And Robert Patrick gets out of the vehicle and goes, "We got it, we got it." And
EMT goes, "That wasn't fucking in there.
That wasn't in there, man. What are you talking about? Yeah, they found their piece. Yeah. So, but that's how it happens. It's textbook planning evidence, and they, because they closed that crime scene, and they really didn't have much of a taillight theory at that time, it appeared, they had to justify that. And justifying that means, oh, well, what do you know? I just happened to be driving down the street a couple of weeks later, and look at this. We found these big pieces of taillight all over the place. Oh, yeah, look at this. There it is. And that's kind of how it happened, I think. And I probably think that because they found it in the snow, they probably planted it before that. Then they probably figured, hey, maybe we should just, justify this a little bit more. So let's add some more taillight to the crime scene. Because again, if it's a closed crime scene, and I've heard people on the other side try to explain this away. Well, it was covered in snow. It can be difficult. Well, here's the thing. Even if it is snowing, you want to secure the crime scene any way you particularly can, because you would have found it if it was there. I mean, you wouldn't have just closed the crime scene. Someone is in a shootout with somebody and they're accused of murdering someone with a handgun. The shell casings are all over the place, and there's probably fingerprints on the shell casings from when they were loaded into the handgun. And in this particular situation, this taillight, I mean, you would have found every piece of that taillight, regardless of the snow, because you would have been digging for it. Because you don't close a crime scene unless you're absolutely sure. And I think that they closed that crime scene. I think they felt that they needed to do some more justifying of the arm. Like, we're going to need a little bit more taillight here because that arm is pretty banged up. And then that becomes the whole theory on, look how gashed up his arm is, and look at all this taillight. And, we have to justify those arm wounds with taillight there, and we have to have enough taillight there to justify those arm wounds. And I'm guessing that somebody saw those wounds at a later time on his arm more clearly, maybe even through the photographs, and said, do we have enough taillight here to really justify those arm wounds? Because again, like fitting a puzzle, fitting blocks into circular squares and squares and triangle squares, you have to make it all fit.
It's not perfection.
Yeah,
Come on,
right.
It's not perfection.
But nobody in their right mind believes that Karen Reed did this. And you have people out there try to tell you, no, you're wrong. Karen Reed did do that. No, she did not. Because again, it doesn't all add up. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes no sense.
Even in that recreation, the experimentation video with this guy he made a brace, he put the Lexus taillight on it. He had an arm in the ballistics gel with bone, and something that you would see like on Mythbuster. You got to watch the video, Maz, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And he takes the elbow shot on it, and literally the elbow is exploded. It's broke his I think it's the ulna bone in his radius. I mean, John's arm would have been shattered if that got hit by, and it's proven. I mean, the experiment proves it. And I was just like, yeah, I get it. It's not a scientific experiment, but it's pretty damn close to real life, what would happen in real life. And again, I think it just goes back to the injuries on the arm. Let's oversprinkle the taillight, really make it look like she bashed him, sprinkle, what is it, 47 pieces of taillight all over Canton. And, I think they, to your point, they needed to make it look like this was this catastrophic event, which it was inside 34 Fairview, but going on the outside here and trying to kind of, I think, overstage the scene to make it very dramatic.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's definitely it. It's just, like I said, it just, I don't think that it speaks well to the crime scene investigation to have a crime scene closed and then try to add evidence to that afterwards, after the fact. It was not a very clean crime scene investigation by the authorities if they're suddenly finding taillight, because again, that could be inconclusive. It could be argued that, well, was this taillight really a part of this? It's not a good look from the crime scene investigation. The police that were there, whether that be state or local police in this particular situation, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't add up. And it's really no good. And again, I think that this trial, to transition here, I just think it's outrageous that this ARCA debate is raging on, that there's a voir dire coming up on Monday. And this continues to just literally, they're trying to conduct a trial where they interview witnesses. Yeah. And now they're going back and forth now with half days to do voir dires all the time. Yeah. This is outrageous that this is carrying on like this. This is something that should have been done before the trial. And perhaps it's grounds that maybe the trial shouldn't have started until this is all cleared up. But the fact that they have to keep coming out here like this and discuss this and talk about it is just, it's madness. It's again, it's more unconventionalness in this trial compared to most other trials. And again, only in the Karen Reed trial, with so much chaos and nonsense, would this now, end in a mistrial the first time. And the media is picking up on this more and more and more. The Boston Herald is extremely favorable in favor of Karen Reed, and Howie Carr, of course, as we know, like you just referenced. And then even Mark Betterow today, as I learned this evening, just a few minutes before I came on the air, actually, was actually on Fox News this morning.
Oh, wow.
To talk about this. So I think Nurse Kim had posted that on our X page tonight, and I saw that, and he was on Fox News. And there's a lot more eyeballs on this thing nowadays. You have a Facebook group that has 60,000 people, but then you have people on the other side saying Karen Reed supporters are not showing up in droves outside of court when there's a buffer zone that was, as I and many others probably expected, was significantly expanded. In any favorable location outside the buffer zone has now been expanded beyond the point of comfortability out there. And I think that the reason why numbers are so low for Karen Reed supporters is quite frankly because it is a bit more uncomfortable than it was last year. Yep. And I think additionally, there was a controversial arrest earlier in the week over someone lingering and videotaping, which was pretty outrageous. quite honestly. And I think people are just staying home a little bit more this particular time because I think people want to protect themselves as well. But you have people on the other side that want to take advantage of that and say, see, Karen lacks support. Well, I got news for you. When you raise $800,000 to $900,000 in donations and you have over 60,000 people that are supporting Karen Reed in a Facebook group, I'll tell you one thing, you're not struggling for support. In fact, Karen Reed's support is greater now than it ever was at any point before, during, or slightly after last year's trial. And Karen Reed's support is now more expansive than ever. And people are probably supporting Karen over believing she's guilty at probably a 99-to-1 ratio at this particular point, maybe even more.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it tells you something when you're raising, money that people, out of the good of their heart are raising money for someone that they can, know that is completely innocent.
Scott McGinnis just commented, the new buffer zone is brutal. We have no space. And I was concerned about this because I said to myself, they probably saw what we had going out there last year where we had a truck set up with food and tents on the side of the road. And we could kind of go in that church parking lot a little bit. And now all of a sudden I said to myself, you watch when they set that buffer zone up, and I'm sure many other people predicted this as well, they're going to push that thing back. So that nice space we all had is going to be a little bit ineffectual. And then sure enough, when that buffer zone ruling came out, there it was. And you got now you have another issue too. I heard that on the opposite side, not the church side, but the business side, that one of the businesses, I don't know if it was a dance studio or yoga studio or something, was complaining that their people that were their customers didn't feel comfortable going in with all the Karen Reed supporters out there. I don't know if that's a manufactured story or whatever it is, but there was a story that they had a business that had concerns about Karen Reed supporters being out there. But again, Karen Reed supporters are being pushed back, and Karen Reed supporters want to be out there to support Karen. But it is, like I said, you heard Scott just say it. It's an uncomfortable situation. The first time I saw those photos online of everybody behind the church by that fence on a tight sidewalk, it's just like, oh boy.
And they were out there ticketing everybody too. I mean, the cars that were parked there were like, I heard they were out there ticketing.
Ticketing?
I think they were ticketing people. And I think Scott can, steer me in the right direction if that's true. I heard someone saying they're out there ticketing people too. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's get some of these super chats and we'll go through some more testimony here. Christy, thank you so much for the 2. She said, I have grave concerns about what Bev really wants. Yes, I agree. Brenda S., $15. Thank you. She said, Blaine Ketchup. Do we know if Higgins and Jen the Ghoul will testify? Most likely they will be called. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sure the Reed team is frothing at the mouth to get them two back on the stand. And I think, I'm honest with you, Maz, I think Carrie Roberts, having her go first and saying what she said and essentially perjured herself, is a great setup for when Jen McCabe gets on that stand. Because now they're going to be able to use that testimony in against Jen too. Wait till they pull that up. Katina, thank you so much for the 20. She says, Maz, I'm so happy to see you. I pray that you are well. And he is well. I mean, I've been in constant contact with him through this whole thing, giving him a space, but always checking in. All right, let's see. Let's play a little bit of the spicy testimony from paramedic / firefighter Nuttall.
After the defendant came over to you and spoke and then left.
Let's see.
That new Madam Court reporter this time around with a more high-tech voice speaker there, too.
Yes. And we saw Lally today. For the first time in like a year and a half, we saw Lally.
Funny. That's funny that he was direct examining today. That was funny. I heard the voice this evening when I watched the playback, and I was like, oh, boy, look at that.
I mean, don't take this in the wrong way. It's just kind of laugh. It's like, kind of missed the old little bugger up there.
Yeah. Good to see you again. Good to see you, Lally. Good to see him out there.
The patient at that point. We were trying to provide care.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Let's see some spicy AJ. Kind of looks like Alfred E. Newman.
So now,
I
have no clue who that is.
You never seen Mad Magazine? Google it. I know you're probably looking.
Oh yeah, I know Magazine. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What, you worried?
I've seen Mad Magazine. Yeah,
saying I hit him a bunch more times. Correct?
I remember hearing it in the background several other times.
Really?
Sir?
Never mentioned that on direct examination, did you?
I'm gonna boost.
I remember being asked about it, sir. I remember saying what was asked to me.
You were asked, did you ever hear the defendant, Ms. Reed, say anything about I hit? And your answer was, she said to me, in answer to my question, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him 3 times, and that's it.
To me.
You didn't clarify that, oh my gosh, she's running around like a chicken with her head cut off, screaming, I hit him to everybody else under the sun.
It was, again, it was behind me in the background as I was providing patient care. Again, that was not my focus.
Okay, so you didn't really.
So if it's not like, just like AJ is going to say, it's not your focus, it's in the background. So how do you know that she said it? How do you know that you heard that she said it?
You hear her say anything in the background because you weren't focused on that, right?
I remember hearing generalized commotion in the background, but again, that was not our focus.
So generalized commotion is very different than hearing her say, I hit him to other people, correct? You'd agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So what you actually heard was the chaos and the commotion of a chaotic scene, correct? In the background.
In the background.
As you focused on your patient care, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not specific words coming out of my client's mouth, correct?
To the question that I posed, do you know him?
You're right. We're off that question.
Okay.
That question, I got it.
Yes, sir.
Triple I hitters.
Correct.
But with regard to what Mr. Brennan just asked you, the generalized commotion, to use your phrase, in the background, you didn't hear any specific words coming out of my client's mouth, did you?
I heard I hit him. But again, it was in the background and it was not my focus.
Well, why didn't you say that on direct? That's kind of an important point. That's why you're here.
Again, if it was neglected on my part, it was not intentional.
Not intentional to neglect that part for the jurors on direct examination.
No, sir.
Certainly not intentional to neglect that part of your testimony on cross-examination.
No, sir.
But you decided to bring it up on on re-cross-examination when Mr. Brennan is asking you questions again, correct?
It was asked of me. Yes,
and it was after, of course, that your new statement that you've never testified to before, ever, is this generalized commotion included a bunch of I hit hims in the background, correct?
Sir.
And that comes after you saw the video that clearly shows that when you described
Oh,
how
I
you
love
heard
this part.
statement, my client was nowhere around you, correct?
That segment of the video that you showed me?
Yes.
That was not the time frame in which she said that to me.
Well, that was the time frame when Flamati was giving CPR, correct?
He was doing CPR down prior to that as well.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, you just testified that you saw him standing up in a big yellow jacket and then kneel down and start giving CPR. We just watched that video. Correct?
But again, the clip of the video that you showed me,
Right.
that was not the segment in which she said that to me.
Well, that's what you're saying now, but what I'm asking is, you described a very distinctive scene, a very, very specific scene.
Yes, sir. I remember it vividly.
She said, that I hit him, Frank, when Lonnie was down giving CPR, and you were kneeling down giving airway support, and he was doing rhythmic CPR chest compression.
Yes, sir. That's what happened.
And then I showed you that very scene, didn't I?
Yes, you showed me that clip prior to that.
I showed you the very scene that you described where Flamani gets down and starts chest compressions and never stops until the gurney is taken off the frame of the camera to the knee. Isn't that what I showed you?
That is
Sure. I don't know if I can do it again. I showed you the scene where firefighter Flamani gets down on his knees, begins chest compressions, and never stops until that gurney is taken off camera, off frame, into the ambulance. That's the clip I showed you, correct?
That's the clip you showed me.
And that's exactly when you described your vivid memory from 3.5 years ago. That's exactly the scene that you described.
Maza, I'm just going to pause this really quick. You hear how Nuttall keeps saying, that's the clip that you showed me. This is coaching from the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go, well, we're going to show you a video. Okay. We're going to show you our clip, but he's going to question you about Famati coming into the scene, doing chest compressions, and you're going to keep just fighting back and going, well, that's the clip that you showed me. Basically saying the Commonwealth clip is the correct clip. It's the same damn clip. He's just playing games here. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's just frustrating because I just don't like the fact that so many are claiming that they heard Karen say, I hit him. But the greatest contradiction above all else is, why was this not reported at the time of the crime? If you hear this information, you know, if Karen Reed is what everyone's saying she is a murderer, then why was this not reported to the police right at the scene when this occurred? It does not make much sense to me in a situation where this has happened. Again, it just does not make much sense. And it seems like they're all after the fact. I hit him. I heard her say it 3 times.
Yeah.
Then the fact that, he had claimed that he heard it 2 times or 3 times. Now he's saying it's 2 times or whatever it was, whatever order it was.
It was
compared
2
to
times
last year.
first, but now it's the triple I hit him because AJ's
Right.
going, I got that. I got
Right.
that. I'm past
Right.
that.
And Alan Jackson called him right out on that quickly to say, well, is it 2 times or 3 times? Which is it? And I thought that really stood out. And this is also another advantage for the defense, getting to cross-examine these witnesses a second time, going back to last year, is they can now use previous testimony and reference that against them. And it's amazing to me that Alan Jackson, with all the witnesses that he must prepare to cross-examine in this trial, retains such a not an intricate detail, I would say a standard detail, not a great detail, but a standard detail of the specific amount of times that he had referenced Karen Reed, quote unquote, say, I hit him, only to turn around and him now testify a year later in contradiction to last year's testimony that he's now saying, I hit him. So that's very, very alarming. But again, hats off to Alan Jackson for having the mental memorization to point something out like that. That was an incredible catch, because you think that when you direct examine people that they, whether or not they're telling the truth or lie, you might expect some kind of level of consistency. And for Alan Jackson to notice that inconsistency and call attention to that was definitely a huge, huge victory for Karen Reed and her entire team. Brett Happens, what's going on? Good to see you.
Hey, Brett, how are you? Yeah. Let's watch a little bit more of this. Then we'll watch a little bit of Yannetti versus Whitley. And then I want to go to obviously end with Carrie Roberts, because I think we're going to get into a little bit of a discussion there. Hope everybody's enjoying this. Good to see Maza Media back here up on the panel. I'm so glad that you could join us. I rustled them out of that cave and I said, you're going to get back up here and let's play through some. What's that?
You poked me with the stick.
I poked him with a stick. And got him back up here. And I respectfully so. I admire someone to take time and mentally unwind and get back in it and do what you do. And again, I appreciate you being up here. We'll play through a little bit more of this. We'll go to Whitley, and then we'll go to Carrie Roberts, because that's gonna be the one to end the show.
When my client supposedly said I hit him to you, correct?
Again, the clip that you showed me, that was not when it was said. That segment that you showed, that was not when it was said. It was said prior to that, when the three of us were together.
So Flamati was not giving chest compressions then?
He was. The CPR was a continuous effort throughout the resuscitation.
But we saw him start it. Officer, Firefighter Nuttall, we saw him start it. We saw him walk into the frame, kneel down, and begin the chest compressions, didn't we?
We did.
And at no point, at that time or after, did my client even approach you, did she, in that clip?
She did.
What?
I love that. What?
Just a question.
Sure.
He's just like flabbergasted. You can hear him go. It reminded me of the Jennifer McCabe moment when Alan Jackson goes, well, you Googled it. Like, it's just another one of those moments.
Yeah.
Do you need to see that clip again?
Yes, please.
We're not going to show a video again. We've seen 2 videos. Which one is marked?
The
one with the timestamp at the top?
It's the exact same video.
I am curious as to why she disallowed them to play that clip back. There was obvious confusion between Alan Jackson and the witness here. And it's intriguing to me that the judge, for the purposes of clarity and also for a jury that's trying to weigh and discern all of this, that she would disallow a replay of that video to go over specific moments. I think that's probably, people can say bias, but I think it's probably up to the judge's discretion, and it's probably within her fair game to make the decision she wants there. But I also think that there was an opportunity to maybe get some clarity and break it down a little bit more. So it's a little bit notable that she kind of did not allow Alan Jackson to,
Yeah, I was upset about that. I actually asked Nan about that the other night when we had her on. Todd McGee, Nan Gallagher was on the show, and I asked her about that, and she just basically, she just said that, it's Bev being Bev. She's going to try to move this trial on as fast as it can. It's going to be a long trial. Sit down, get your seats buckled up. This ain't a 6-week trial. I mean, just the pacing of it right now, this is going to be another 8-10 week trial easily. easily. This is, and like, to Mazza's credit, you know, you're bringing in, you're voir direing people, you're doing half days, and then you're doing half days of testimony. You know, it's going to be a long ass trial. All right, let's pull up Whitley. Oh, this was great this morning. Or no, this wasn't this morning. This was yesterday. Yesterday morning, I believe.
This
Was it yesterday? Yeah, one day ago. I'm losing my mind already.
Wasn't he on 2 days in a row? And
yes.
One day started the next day.
Yannetti has his ass right here in the beginning of this one.
It's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question.
Oh, I love it.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, yesterday you testified that when Karen Reed was brought to the hospital, she didn't want to get into a hospital Johnny and she didn't want to give a urine sample. Do you recall that testimony?
Excuse me.
I do. It was clear to you that her reluctance to cooperate at that time was because she very much wanted to check on John's progress and status at the hospital, correct?
No, I don't believe that to be the case.
Well, you testified before the grand jury regarding this matter 3 years ago, didn't you?
I don't believe I said that she was
I didn't ask you that question. You testified before the grand jury 3 years ago, didn't you?
I testified before the grand jury 3 years ago.
You were under oath then, as you're under oath today, correct?
Correct.
You swore to tell the truth.
I am telling the truth.
You swore to tell the truth in 2022 before the grand jury, did you not?
I did.
That was less than 3 months after you brought Karen Reed to the hospital, didn't you?
Yeah.
And
those eyes
your
are darting
memory of
around
what
like
happened
crazy.
at the hospital
And
was very good in April of 2022, right?
As good as today?
Your memory in April of 2022 was very good, wasn't it?
It was very good as it is today.
Okay, so you want to add the as it is today, despite the fact that you weren't asked that question. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. When questioned by Mr. Lally at the grand jury, you were asked the
Oh
following
man,
question.
he is a nervous Nelly.
So what, if any, interaction did you have with her, meaning Ms. Reed, at the hospital once you were there? You remember that question, right?
I do.
And your answer was, after that, I helped escort her down to...
I'm just going to stop it and give the respect where we need to give the respect. Kelly Reed checking in. Nice to see you, Kelly. Love you to death. She says, hello, Brian and Mazza. Long week. Watching on my TV, but I thought I would pop into the chat and say hello. Mazza, if you want to say something here to Kelly, by all means.
Kelly, we love you. We're supporting your family as always, and we're hoping for the best for Karen this time. We're going to continue to back her up and raise money for her any way we can, and voice our thoughts as always. That's what we like to do here, and thanks for popping in the chat. It's good to see you again.
And happy 75th birthday to Janet Reed today. And again, I always say this when I see the Reeds. I feel horrible that they have to go through the later years of their life in a courtroom, and they shouldn't be. And, you know, they should be out on a beach or next to some water or, you know, having a nice meal somewhere. And, you know, so happy birthday, Janet. Kelly says, we love both of you too. Very nice to see you, Kelly. Thank you. All right, let's play through a little bit more here of the spicy Yannetti.
Where they have rooms set up for psychiatric patients for their evaluation. And
oh man, look at the ticks.
That she wasn't able to see him, meaning John. And she kept trying to. She didn't want to get into a hospital Johnny. She didn't want to, I believe, give a urine sample. She was not, the nurses were asking her to do certain things that every patient has to do, and she was not cooperating with them. Do you remember that answer?
I do.
So 3 years ago, when you testified about this issue of giving a urine sample, you testified under oath that you believed that she didn't want to give a urine sample, correct?
Correct.
Yesterday, 3 years later, you testified with certainty that she didn't want to give them, right?
Yeah, she was giving them a hard time about having to give a urine sample.
Right. No, I'm asking you about your testimony yesterday in contrast to the grand jury, sir. Okay. To the extent that I ask yes or no question, I'd like yes or no.
You pause this for a second.
No instructions to the.
Yep.
Thank you so much. The issue I have here is when we look at some of these cross examinations. So for the two witnesses that were both firefighters or EMTs, we've talked about for a long time, we've had our concerns about police corruption at the local and state level in this particular case. But here you have EMTs and firefighters that are really not winning us over as individuals that are giving us testimony that we feel we can trust them with. And that to me is a very big concern here.
Alarming.
It is. It's you're sitting here and you're watching the defense, like, literally you'd feel like maybe a cross-examination would go a lot smoother, but you see that the defense is literally getting into choppy waters with firefighters and EMTs, which is very notable to me. And some will say, you're going to say all these people are liars. Well, I don't know if they're liars. I don't know, but I'll tell you this right now. I don't feel very comfortable listening to these guys. I don't feel like I'm sitting there saying, well, I can trust what they're saying. I sit there and it's like, boy, this is really, it's saying it's raising an alarm. Bells and whistles are going off. It's and again, these are not police officers, and we our free Karen Read people mostly kind of criticize the police, but then you have firefighters and EMTs, and again, you can't sit here with confidence and say that you can believe and the fullness of their testimonies as being accurate. It's just, again, very choppy between them and the defense.
Concerning. All right, let's play a little bit more, and then we'll get to Carrie Roberts.
I'm asking you about your testimony yesterday in contrast to the grand jury, sir. Okay. To the extent that I ask yes or no question, I'd like yes or no answers.
So no instructions to the witness, Mr.
You instruct the
judge. Instructed to answer the question yes or no. If
I love that. Then you instruct them. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Here we go,
sir. Okay. To the extent that I ask yes or no question, I'd like yes or no answers.
So no instructions to the witness, Ms. Giannetti. Ask a question.
Be instructed to answer the question yes or no if it calls for a yes or no question.
Answer the question that's asked of you. Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead, ask a question.
You testified yesterday that she didn't want to give a urine sample without saying it was your belief that she didn't want to give one, correct?
Correct.
In any case, were you aware that when she was asked to give a urine sample, that Ms. Reed had gotten her period and did not have a tampon?
I was aware she was on her period, yes.
Excuse me.
You're also aware that when somebody is brought to the hospital for a Section 12, they have no privacy. Isn't that right?
They have medical privacy. Either the tech or the nurse would be with the patient at all times.
Okay. With them at all times, observing them at all times, correct?
So they wouldn't be, she wasn't in like a hallway open to the public.
Understood, sir. But she also, when I said privacy, what I was asking is, she was not allowed to go to the bathroom alone to give a urine sample, correct?
She was a psychiatric patient.
Right. So she would have to use the bathroom in front of hospital personnel or some medical personnel with people watching her while she was on her period with no tampon, correct?
I would understand that to be true.
All right.
Where's McLaughlin? Is she gone? Not sure. Not sure. We'll play a little bit more here. We'll go to Carrie Roberts.
And you're aware that she did cooperate and eventually give a blood sample as well, correct?
I'm not aware of a blood sample, but urine sample, yes.
She did give the urine sample.
Correct.
Now, in your testimony, yes, of what Karen Reed may have asked you about.
This has been interesting now. They're doing this camera spot, Mazza. You notice this?
Yeah.
It's like the Karen cam. How do you feel about that? You think that's a little bias?
I don't have a thought about it yet. I'll get back to you. I don't recall. I don't understand the question.
We'll do another minute here, and then I want to get to Carrie Roberts. I want to end on that tonight. Here we go.
John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions? John surviving in the snow with light clothing. You remember those questions?
I remember asking about not having a jacket, correct?
Now, starting at the end of the day, when I cross-examined you yesterday, I asked you about that topic, and I said to you, you mentioned something about hypothermia, that you assumed you may have been dealing with a hypothermia situation. And your answer was, well, She said that he had been out in the snow without a jacket for many hours, correct?
Correct.
But before I cross-examined you at the end of the day yesterday, you previously testified 3 times about this topic, correct?
I believe it would be the grand jury and the previous trial.
Right, and direct examination when Mr. Brennan was asking you questions before I stood up, correct?
Okay, yes.
Let's start with the first time you testified about this topic back in 2022. That was.
All right, I'm going to pause here. I want to go out to end the show here. We're going to play Carrie Roberts. It's about a 15-minute clip. It's about a 12-minute clip. We'll go through that. I think this is going to be great. And I think this is the one that everybody's been waiting for. Obviously, we've seen it, but we can go through it here. Again, I want to thank Maza Media for jumping up tonight and jumping up on this panel with me. And, listen, you're a voice that needs to be in this community. I respect what you need to do in your life and your mental health and all the things that makes Maza Media. And, it's great to have you back here. I know the audience was very excited when they saw you. Look, you just do things at your own pace when you feel comfortable that you want to do something. You're your own person, but it's glad to have you back up here. We need you in this movement. You're OG, bro. You are OG.
Appreciate it.
Here, so
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's good. Probably a good idea to take a break because I'm probably gonna, if I'm deciding to come back on a regular basis, it's probably could have used that rest. I know I said that actually during last year's trial. I'm like, I'm glad I took that week or two off before the trial last year, before I get back into it full swing again because I was pretty exhausted by the time it was over. That's for sure. We're ready to rock. It's gonna be a big win for Karen this time.
I think so. Hey, if you haven't got the opportunity yet, everybody in the chat, smash that like button. Let's get this to 1,000 likes before this stream ends. All right, let's get to Carrie Roberts. Let's hear her perjure herself. And wow, what a moment, right? Here we go.
In the car on the way to the hospital. She said it to Mrs. O'Keefe.
When you were outside trying to help John, were you ever told where the defendant dropped John off?
No.
Were you ever told where he was left?
No.
Was it ever suggested that he went into 34 Fairview?
No.
Was it ever suggested that he went into any house whatsoever that morning?
No.
Were you ever asked to go into the house to look for him?
No.
When you were being interviewed by law enforcement.
There it is. There it is. When you were being yeah, you heard it, Maz. Little Freudian slip.
To look for him?
No.
When you were being interviewed by law enforcement.
Do you hear it? When you were being influenced. When you were being interviewed by law enforcement. Woo!
Did you ever refuse to be interviewed?
No.
Were the interviews all the same or different?
They were all different. They were all different.
Were you ever asked to give a complete review and detail of everything that you knew?
I was just asked to tell me the story of what happened that morning.
And at some point when you were interviewed, you were asked about the phone calls that the defendant made to you that morning.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yes.
When you received those phone calls, Jennifer McCabe was not.
Yeah, that's right. Jennifer McCabe flipped too.
Was she a party to the
Carrie
calls?
Roberts.
No.
Did she influence your memory in any way about the words that the defendant spoke to you that morning?
Objection.
I'll allow that. No.
Do you have a clear memory of what the defendant said to you on the morning of January 29th, 2022 at around 5 a.m. when she first called you?
Yes.
Is it your independent memory?
I'm saying.
Is it your independent memory?
Yes.
How well do you remember it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Tell us what you remember her saying to you.
Objection.
I'll allow it. When she first called, she said, John's dead, Carrie, and hung up.
And she called you back.
She called back.
Would she call back? Was there any other party on the line other than you and her?
No.
What do you remember the second time that she called you?
Yes. She said, John, I think he got hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. He would never not have come home. I wasn't supposed to stay in Campton, and Kaylee was here. He would never leave Kaylee by herself.
Did anybody ever ask you to lie
No,
or exaggerate?
no.
Would you?
Say that?
Would you?
No.
Sustained.
You were asked whether or not you told people on January 29th about the missing pieces to the defendant's taillight. And you began to say you didn't tell anybody that morning.
I didn't think it had anything to do with John. I didn't want to point fingers at anybody
Why not?
because I had no idea what had happened to him. I wasn't going to point fingers at his girlfriend.
Was it in fact broken with missing pieces that morning?
That's pretty critical testimony right there too. She said, "I'm not going to be pointing fingers at John's girlfriend." I mean, that's pretty much solidifying, saying like you didn't think that Karen did this. I mean, what do you read? You read anything into that, Mazza? Do you want me? Let me back it up.
Yeah, I don't know if I do or not, but
Let's hear it again.
And you began to say you didn't tell anybody that morning.
I didn't think it had anything to do with John. I didn't want to point fingers at anybody
Why not?
because I had no idea what had happened to him. I wasn't going to point fingers at his girlfriend.
Was it in fact broken with missing pieces that morning?
Yes.
You saw the ring video of you and Miss McCabe and the defendant going into John's house?
Yes.
Had you seen that video before today?
Yes.
Had you been shown it before in
Yes.
other proceedings?
Yes.
When you went into the house with Miss McCabe and the defendant, did you do anything before you went into the house, actually in the house?
When
we
took off our shoes
You took off your shoes?
Jen and I both took off our boots
Why did you take off your boots?
because you had to take off your shoes to go into John's house.
Well, you say you had to. Explain to us a little bit of the background on that.
John.
I'm afraid
was
you
a
must
new
take off
kid. We were not
shoes
allowed
like
to wear
in
shoes in the house.
Donnie Brasco.
What's that?
The shoe scene, and I think of the shoe scene in Donnie Brasco. I'm afraid you must take off your shoes.
I'm afraid you must take off your shoes. I ain't taking my shoes off.
Had you ever worn shoes in his house?
Yeah.
Oh,
Had you ever seen anybody wear shoes in his house?
no.
Take off your
You and
pants.
They
Miss
do
McCabe?
now.
That's what he says.
They do now.
He says, "Sir, you need to take off your shoes."
Yeah. that was so crazy scene in that movie. We're not going to take off our shoes. No, it was a crazy scene.
Just take off your pants.
As soon as I started talking about it, like every time I hear about taking off your shoes, I always think of that scene in the Japanese restaurant in Donnie Brasco.
He says, "Tell him to take his pants off."
Of course, Johnny Depp is wearing a wire, so he doesn't want to take his
Take
boots
off your
off because he's going to get revealed as a Fed before the mobsters. They're like, "Just take your shoes off, Johnny Depp." He's like, "I'm not taking off my shoes." Then it just escalates way out of control. They end up taking the guy in the bathroom and beating the shit out of him. It's like, what the hell? It's just.
I just like his quick reaction when it goes,
Yeah.
"Let's take off your shoes. Take off your pants." I gotta get off this.
I know.
You and Miss
That's,
McCabe took your shoes off?
that's all
Yes.
I'm thinking
Can't
about.
breathe.
Did the defendant take her
Yeah.
shoes off?
She did not
How do you remember that?
because Jen and I were standing there for about a good 2 minutes trying to get our boots off and she had already gone in the house.
Oh, God.
Do
Excuse
you know why
me.
you were called that morning?
No.
Take off your pants.
Did you volunteer to be part of this
Yes.
after the call?
Yes.
You had said you thought that you looked at the taillight before you went into John's house.
Yes,
Do you remember actually seeing the tail light that morning?
I do.
Was it simply cracked?
No.
Do you know that the portion of the
That's a
ring
big point of
video
debate
from
right
when you
there.
came
He
out of the
asks,
house-
he
Go ahead,
asks, is it simply cracked? And she said no. So her statement is her answer to that question is in line or consistent with what was claimed about a shattered taillight, but it is not, in my view, and many others' view, in line with the way that taillight looked when she was leaving One Meadow Lane to search for John O'Keefe. And that's essentially a point of contention that the defense will probably bring up later in this trial, as well as to point out that the taillight was cracked. It was not shattered after she originally left 34 Fairview, then went to One Meadow Lane, and then when she kind of departed later. So just
Barrows.
Yeah.
I want to hear more from him.
with the
All right, we're gonna get
defendant,
to Spicy AJ here in a second.
Ms. McCabe, do you know that portion is missing?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have you ever seen any ring video depicting when the defendant was showing you her missing pieces of taillight that morning?
No.
Despite no video, are you certain that you saw it?
Say it again.
Are you certain that you looked at it with the defendant that morning in that driveway?
Objection.
Sustained.
I'd like to play clip 3, please.
Okay.
Beat up here for time.
On the record.
Here we go. Let's go to AJ. Here we go.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Brennan.
When you first got to John and you were trying to save him that morning, do you have a distinct memory of it?
Yes.
Counsel had asked you if it was your story. Was this a story?
Say it again.
Was it a story that you told?
A story?
Yes.
It's what happened.
Do you wish it was just a story?
Objection.
Sustained.
Yeah, it was a yeah.
No further question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, here
so
we go.
Ross.
Oh gosh, you see her face when AJ stood up.
Just a few minutes ago.
Look at her.
Did you ever say that you actually heard that statement about the Google search? And you said no.
Correct.
The question that was posed to you by Mr. Lally was, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed,
What?
ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, correct?
I misunderstood the
And
question.
you misunderstood that question?
Yes.
What did
I
you
did.
misunderstand about that question?
I didn't know it was that you heard, so I was explaining what happened in the back of the car.
I see. So you just ignored the part, literally, the part of the question where he said, what did you hear her say? That's
I
what your
think the word
testimony
was
is now?
heard, and I didn't hear it. I obviously got the question wrong because I did not hear anybody ask about a Google search.
Well, I know that's what you're saying now. I get that. But when you were asked, what, if anything, did she ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, your immediate answer was, at one point, she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long dash Google hypothermia, end quote. Correct?
Correct.
That was your answer,
Yes.
correct?
To a question I misunderstood.
And that was a false statement, wasn't it?
Technically.
Technically?
Yes, technically.
You're pregnant, Ms. Roberts.
Okay, so remember, jurors, I said earlier, comments of counsel are not evidence and you're to disregard them.
That's perjury. I mean, that's perjury.
It's a bad situation. I mean, if you, I would say this. I'm going to say this very clearly. The fact that Alan Jackson called out Nuttall about the 2 times versus 3 times versus the in comparison to the previous trial, and then you have someone on the stand. Now, the fact that they're getting her to say, well, this and that on the stand, if you're a juror, you know, you're trying to create reasonable doubt as a defense attorney or a defense team.
Sure.
And right here, when you have someone essentially under oath say, hey, yeah, I said this or that.
My bad.
Now, all of a sudden, you know, if you're a juror, you're going to say, well, whether I believe Karen Reed did it or not, you know, reasonable doubt starting to creep in my head almost immediately here. And this don't look too good for the prosecution.
No,
I really don't.
good.
I really
It's
don't
pretty
think so.
damning. And I talked about this with Nan and Todd the other night. I can almost imagine when Brennan left that day, he probably got in his car and just motherfucked left and right. That's pretty bad. I mean, that's pretty damning. And if we got a smart jury up there and they caught that, it's pretty damning. I mean, here's someone that's essentially lying, creating reasonable doubt. All right, here we go.
Ask a question.
Another minute.
Thank you, Your Honor. What do you mean technically?
Technically, I was under oath and I did not hear Karen asked Jen to Google it.
And yet under oath.
But I knew it happened at that
and
time.
yet under oath, you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
Was that a lie?
You even have Auntie, you even have
Not
Judge
intentionally.
Cannoni asking her. You even have Judge Cannoni asking her if it was a lie, which is, given the level of critique that I've had for this judge, and I have been unfavorable in my opinion to this judge, even in the trial today and even moments during clips, and then you literally have the judge
asking,
did she lie? Which is,
but it was funny because if you look at her when Hank objects, and it's a very quiet objection. You got to catch it. And then you hear Judge Bev go to say something. She almost turns to look at the judge, almost like you're going to save me here? And then all of a sudden was that a lie? I don't think she was ready for that. I don't think she was ready
I don't
for
think
that.
so either. That's again, a judge that we've considered biased to the prosecution is literally asking a Commonwealth witness if she lied. That's like I said, I have to take away a negative comment away from the judge in that moment, because that was a moment where she kind of showed, in my opinion, I'm shocked to even be saying this, a level of impartiality as a judge, which like I said, I've had a negative critique about this judge for a long time, but in that particular moment, I thought that was a moment that the judge could have, maybe threw a little bit of a end the round for the witness here, but she does not. It's just I did not expect that out of the judge. Play it back like 20 seconds back and hear that again. That's
Yeah,
just
we're gonna play it back. I went back.
Okay,
but
thanks.
Nobo, their opinion is, I think it was Bev's way of letting her explain herself and make an excuse. I don't know. Let's hear this again.
Technically.
Technically?
Yes,
It's like being a little
technically.
bit pregnant, Ms. Roberts.
Okay, so remember,
about
jurors, I said
opinion.
earlier, comments of counsel are not evidence and you're to disregard them. Ask a question.
Thank you, Your Honor. What do you mean technically?
Technically, I was under oath and I did not hear Karen asked Jen to Google it,
And yet under oath.
but I
you-
knew it happened at that
And yet
time.
under oath, you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
Yes.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally,
But you did.
And
not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
All right. Is there any other question or was that
I
it?
didn't hear what you just said.
I said I misunderstood the question.
I like how he makes her repeat it again too. Let's.
Under oath.
But I
you-
knew it happened at that
And yet
time.
under oath, you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
Yes.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not
Uh,
intentionally.
The
Well, I don't
prosecutor,
know.
the
tone of his voice,
prosecutor,
did you
the
lie?
the prosecutor objects, and the judge completely ignores that. Though, I'm not sure if anybody picked
Yeah.
up on that.
You
He
hear
objects.
Brennan object very lightly. He goes objection. Like, I'm gonna object to this. So his tone of his voice is kind of like objection. And then she goes, was it a lie? Did you lie? Like, she asked her the question, did you lie?
This screenshot, I try to, even though I have a different viewpoint than the people that are witnesses here, I try to be as objective as I can when I critique them. But I will say this: the look on her face is the equivalent of someone accidentally dropping a glass full of red wine onto a white floor or a
white
carpet. It's she looks very rattled here, and to your point made moments ago, the judge asking her to answer if she's a liar, and again, this before the jury is very I think you compared it the other night to A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
With the kid, what's his name that was on
Don't
the
look at
stand?
the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this reminds me of
Don't look
too.
at the judge. He's not gonna help you.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, for the prosecution, this is not a
Downey.
good
It was
Downey, yeah.
Loud and Downey.
Yeah.
He goes to look at the judge, and then I'm sorry, Kevin Bacon goes, don't look at the judge. He's not gonna help you. Yeah.
I think for her in her position, I'm not trying to give any advice here, but I would say that ideally it would have been better if she never admitted to lying for her own sake. Something better would have been to say, I answered the question based on how I understood it. But now all of a sudden the word lies and liars and admitting to lying is coming up. And at the same time, when you're the defense, this is exactly what you want presented before the jury, because now this is going to go back to closing arguments. This also is going back to the whole argument that they claim that Karen told so-and-so to Google search how long to die in cold.
Mm-hmm.
And now, you have this particular witness now in a situation where there's an inconsistency in the answers. And this, ladies and gentlemen, this establishes reasonable doubt right here. And that, to me, this is already the entire case, because again, whether someone's lying or not, whether Karen did it or not, you've already established reasonable doubt here. There's something, there's something not right here. You know, if you're gonna in a world where, let's say, Karen Reed did do it, you'd expect more cut and dry stuff. You wouldn't expect all this controversy. You wouldn't expect the witness to be very disheveled on the stand and nervous and really having a glass shattering moment where they're very fearful for themselves and their state. This is someone that's very concerned at this particular point. And that's a big concern from the prosecution side. For the defense, this is a grand slam. This is a mother bleeping grand slam right here.
I
Because
agree.
you really have a situation where you're like, we're trying to get reasonable doubt. That's all we need. And now we're having someone literally say, you know, you have a judge, again, the judge asked her, the judge of all judges on this earth asked her, did you lie? I mean, for the defense, that's a major win. They must have been talking about that one going home that day.
Let me just get this in really quick. Alexandra said, hey, if we can get 150 more likes, that should get us to 1,000. In 2 minutes, she'll donate $100. Do not donate to me, please. Donate to Karen Reed's defense fund. And just put, you know, LTL Media, you know, please donate to Karen Reed's defense fund. I'd rather you do that. She needs it more than I do. Let's do this. I'm going to just drop the link if you don't have it. And if we get that 1,000, I think that's great. You know, donate that $100 to Karen. All right, Mazza, let's finish this one up, and then we'll wrap up the show here tonight. Again, thank you for jumping up on paneling. This has been great to have you come back here and do the spicy this Friday night heat with me here. All right, here we go.
And
Not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
All right, is there any other question, or is that it?
I didn't know what you just said.
I said I misunderstood the question, Mr. Jackson.
That's what you're saying now.
Defensiveness.
That's what happened.
All right,
Can I ask one more question?
okay.
In that quote, you said, at one point she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long. Then you corrected yourself and finished with Google hypothermia. What did you mean by how long? What were you about to say?
I don't recall.
Now she's going to play the I don't recall game.
About a phrase that started with how long?
I don't recall.
Hypothermia?
I don't recall.
Like, for instance, how long to die in cold?
I don't recall.
Okay. All right, Ms. McKay. I'm sorry. Ms. Roberts.
She said Miss McCabe. Oh, Mazza. I mean, come on. This is just week one. This is just week one. This is just week one. She called her Miss McCabe. Ah, I can't.
I hope the jury
Mazza, give me a final word here, and then we'll wrap up shop here.
Sure. I'm hoping the jury picks up on everything the way we're picking up on it. I know typically we're far more familiar with this case than the jury is. And even last time, we think that the jury picked up on a lot of it, but not all of it. I think Ronnie, the juror, in a recent interview, significantly picked up on it. We have a juror that's now basically working for the defense as well. So interesting first week. It's what's notable for me is that the rotation of the witnesses the prosecution is calling this time is not necessarily categorically. Last time around, they kind of called all EMTs and firefighters, police, state police, Alberts, McCabe, they kind of called up everyone in kind of like a cycle. This time around, it's kind of more of a bounce around. It's maybe someone that was with Karen that night, maybe an EMT, maybe whomever, medical. It's kind of bouncing around. I'm interested to see what the prosecutor's rotation is going to be like continuing on here. Is he kind of almost like food groups? Is he going from one food group to the next with categorically, like that with the witnesses? It kind of seems to be going in almost a cycle, where it's like, let's an EMT, then let's go to somebody else, then let's go to this person, and that, he's kind of cycling around with his witnesses out of each category. So I'm interested to see when that happens. I'm also interested to see when some of the more prominent names are also called to the stand as well. I'm interested to see when that occurs, how far into this particular trial that does. So interesting start, very different start than the first trial. The first trial felt more smooth. This one's a lot more chaotic with the ARCA and the voir dire coming up and all that's going on. A lot of lumbering, a lot of laboring through this. And I think that the defense has not only won, but they've got big wins big wins here, and a lot of reveals. And I think, again, that's because their defense's second time around has an even more honed in idea on exactly what they want to do. So I'm looking forward to continuing to follow this case. I may have a few other plans to be on a few more shows in the next couple of days and the late nights of the upcoming week. We'll see. Other than that, I have no initial plans to start my show back up, at least at this time. We'll see. Who knows? I'll probably wake up at 10 o'clock tomorrow and decide to do my own show. I'll be on 11 o'clock out of nowhere. But no, it's good to be back, at least for tonight. I love everybody. I'm so overwhelmed by the amount of support by everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate everything and the respect and the love and admiration I've received. And I love and admire everyone else as well. I had a few people email me today. I got to get back to those emails the next day or two with some kind words said to me. I appreciate that. And thank you guys so much for welcoming me back and supporting me. And my decision I made a month ago to take some time for myself. I'm not going to be able to enjoy my chicken wings. I already had boneless chicken wings before the show and half of an Italian sub. So that was pretty good. So yeah, I'm happy to be back tonight. It definitely didn't feel weird at all being back. It just felt like it's been a bit.
Yeah, you went right to the old routine.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah.
It's kind of the rhythm. So I felt like Morgan Freeman asking Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises, "Do you remember where you parked?" And he just goes, yeah. It was weird setting up the studio tonight. I was like, oh, geez. I'm like, am I really doing this? It was a lot weirder. Actually, I actually told you I set up the studio the other day before I kind of told you I couldn't make it on the show. And I was like, I couldn't do it that night, but I'm back tonight. So, Brian, thanks for having me. Great work that you've done and great work with your studio, great work with your shows, and continue to do what you do best, sir, and continue to fight the good fight for Karen Reed and many other people that are the victims of injustice. And we hope to get Karen, in the best position possible here to move forward with her life and take the next steps. So that's great. And I'm actually off to a faster start in this trial than I was in the last trial because I actually start this one showing my face. But I couldn't sit back any longer and follow this trial and not get my voice back out there again. I kind of felt a call back to talking. So we'll see how this goes. It should be interesting. It's going to be enduring, but it's going to be a busy next couple months with all of our, like I said, me and you, we work, we got work lives to focus on first and foremost. That's the most important part, obviously, for us, but also finding time to keep track of the case outside of work, and then also time to do shows as well. So it's busy, but it's worth it. Karen's fighting for her freedom here, and she deserves it. And these are very lovely. Karen Reed family is a very lovely family. Again, happy birthday to Janet Reed. We love you to death. Love her to death. Every time I see her, she is nothing but warm with me and friendly and motherly as well. Just a wonderful woman. And Bill, what a wonderful husband and father to Karen and to Nathan. What a terrific brother. And then to Kelly, what a terrific cousin. She has been really just a great ambassador for her cousin and doing a tremendous job.
I agree. And Nathan, don't leave Nathan out of this.
I already said Nathan.
Oh, okay, as I say,
you did. And I did. I said Nathan. Yep, of course.
So great.
Yep, I got him.
It's so great. Well, that is the one Mark Maza Media here. Coming back after some time off. Again, you're a voice that's needed in this community, and I want to thank you again for jumping up on this first episode of Friday Night Heat, where we went through all the spicy testimony this night, and I appreciate your insights, your knowledge, and your candor in all of this. So
thank you.
Thanks for jumping up. You're welcome on the show at any time. You know that. And I have a beautiful seat over there. If you ever want to come hang out in the studio, it's ready to go. And maybe we'll get you back. I know there's going to be a lot of people coming up to the trial that will be coming in and sitting in the studio. And I'm awaiting a beautiful new podcast table where we're all going to be able to sit at one table so you can all see us at the same time. So I don't have to do camera clipping anymore. We'll just all be right on panel and it'll look like a morning show. So I'm excited about that. That is Mark Maza Media. Make sure to go over and check him out on YouTube at MazzaMedia. And you can also check him out on X as well. I'm going to send him out so he can get some rest, and I'm going to close up shop here. Mark, again, great to see you. I'm glad that we stayed in contact through all this, and I appreciate you jumping up on the panel.
Thank you very much, Brian. Free Karen Reed, and God bless everyone.
I love it. We'll talk soon, brother.
Yep. Take care, man.
All right. That is Mark Maza Media. Well, everybody, that was our first episode of Friday Night Heat, where we went through all the spicy testimony and cross-examination over this last week. And I thank you all for being here. If you're new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. Thank you tonight for all the monetary support. I appreciate that. We did get to 1,000 likes. Love you guys. Love you, love you. I had a couple of Venmos come through. I'm gonna get that out of the way. Pharrell, Drake, thank you so much for the $5. Says happy birthday, Miss Reed. And also I had a PayPal that came through, so that was for $5. So I want to thank that person as well. Well, tomorrow I'll be off tomorrow, but back here on Sunday morning for the Super Sunday show. I'll be solo, but we're still going to open up the phone lines to hear all of your thoughts on Karen Reed 2.0. And then we have an awesome lineup this week. We have Monday night. We'll be checking in with you. We have our first episode with Courtroom Insider and journalist. She's sitting in on the Karen Reed trial. Jess Machado will join me back on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And I'm very excited to hear her insights into the Karen Reed trial so far, sitting inside that courtroom reporting. So make sure to set all your reminders. I'll be back here on Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And everybody have a great night. I'll talk to you all soon. I love you. Thank you so much for all the support lately, and keep pushing this LTL platform out into the evil YouTube algorithm. Everybody have a great Friday night. See you back here on Sunday for the Super Show. Bye.